Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Is it possible for us to change Washington by bypassing Washington? Tonight, what do governments hate because they can't control? In America, the government seems to control everything. Light bulbs, shoe leather, refrigerators, the water strength of your shower, your banker, your doctor, your lawyer. All are regulated by the feds beyond belief. What is it in America that the feds cannot control? The answer is simple. Human nature. We need to eat and we need to move about. And that means we will use the free market with or without the government in order to do so. Every capable human on the planet engages in market exchanges, even in those countries where it's illegal. And through all of known history, humans have advanced civilization by building up the avenues of trade so as to increase their standards of living. When you buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of gas, you are freely choosing to engage in what remains of the free market. I emphasize the phrase "what remains" because when you buy bread, you are paying the local or state government a tax for a product that was baked under conditions set forth by the feds and one of the 50 states. And when you buy fuel for your car, up to 1/4 of the cost of the fuel consists of state and federal sales taxes. You know this. I believe that sales taxes constitute a grand theft concocted by politicians and bureaucrats so as to provide them with a never-ending supply of your cash, which they can use to bribe people for their votes. Sales taxes also make items that we need more expensive, and they intrude on your privacy. Think about it. If I want a loaf of bread and you are a grocer willing to sell me one, what business is that of the government? None. What involvement has the government had in that transaction? None. What has the government done to add value to that transaction? Nothing. The protesters in Wall Street seem not to understand that free trade is a natural right like speech, travel, religion, self-defense, privacy, and is mutually beneficial to both the buyer and the seller. That's why at the end of the transaction, each party says, "Thank you," because we have both benefited. It is a win-win. I have food and fuel, and the seller of them has revenue. So how is it today that this natural and daily activity has become much maligned and exploited and even hated by the governing classes of the world? As the global economies have collapsed and collided in the past decade, nothing has been certain except for uncertainty. The world's central banks, drunk on power, loaded their people up with debt and then slowly guided their economies into destruction. That's the consequence of government control of the monetary system and the means of exchange. Prices in an economy are like traffic signals, signaling where goods and resources should go and how fast they should move. Central banks distort those traffic signals and even send the wrong signals. That's why we have crashes, because of government traffic signals, because the government has taken the free out of the free marketplaces. But free trade does occur in the United States in many ways. The black markets are where people trade for what they want for a price agreed upon, free of taxes, free of government regulations, and at prices that are acceptable to the parties. Simply banning the activity will not deter some portion of the population from attempting to acquire something, whether it's bread or tobacco or drugs or guns, that the government doesn't want you to have. People will always trade what they have for what they want or need. That's human nature. That's a natural human right. That cannot be stopped by the government. But of course, governments have tried to stop the exercise of this right. During World War II, for example, FDR and his cronies rationed sugar and leather and tea and tobacco and guns and coffee and fuel and many other items our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents needed for everyday use. The stated purpose of the rationing was that the troops needed these items and there were not enough of them to go around, so the federal government would decide who got what and how much all these things would cost. But there was a black market in all these items, and there the items were plentiful and the price was freely agreed upon. If the government had just stayed out of the picture, the market could have existed in the light of day. We now know that FDR was more interested in control than he was in supplying the troops. He knew there was enough to meet everyone's needs. To me, the heroes in those days were not those who counted their ration coupons. The heroes were those who bought and sold with impunity. The government fears trade, free trade, because it can't control it. The feds would do well to remember the lesson that where goods and services don't freely cross borders, armies will. And where goods and services do freely cross borders, armies will not. Many people write to Freedom Watch asking me how the next revolution will come. They ask what they can do to fight big government. All right, a little selling. First, get a copy of It's Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong. It's a primer on basic freedom. Then, after you read it, challenge authority and exercise your freedoms. And think about this. When the black market becomes more prosperous than the one the government regulates, then the message will resonate. From New York,